And to start our presentation today, it's important that we acknowledge the traditional lands. Royal Roads University is situated on the traditional lands of the Kosepsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. It is with great gratitude that we now learn and work here where past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. So we're here today to explore our Master of Arts in Leadership, the Executive Leadership Specialization, which is so exciting. So my name is Selena Kunar. I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads, and I'm happy to be helping navigate the slide deck and provide a bit of information as we go through. We are joined by Dr. Kathy Bishop, who is the program head of our Master of Arts in Leadership, Executive Leadership Specialization, who will tell us a lot more about the program. Thanks so much for being here, Kathy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. My pleasure to be here with all of you to share some of the whys and whats and hows of our MA Leadership XL program.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get into the program itself in just a few slides, but here's a quick overview of what we'll do before then and a little after that as well. So we've done a short introduction of who we are, but we would love to learn a little bit more about all of you. So if you feel comfortable, let's take that chat box function for a spin and let us know, where in the world are you joining us from today? What sector are you working in? And feel free to pop in why you're joining us today, something you're hoping to learn, or anything we can help you with. It's always so exciting to know who's in the room, where people are, and how we can make sure this webinar is as informational as possible for all of you. So while notes come up in the chat box, I'll just swing through how we're going to spend the hour together today. So next we'll head into the RRU experience overview, talk about the program itself, cap off with some admission and application requirements, and of course leave time for questions and conversations. So with that, I'm going to give my chat box an open and see some of the folks we have with us today. So we have folks tuning in from different parts of Vancouver Island. We have Victoria, Parksville, Kelowna, folks from Alberta as well, Sherwood Park, Coquitlam, Ontario, Hope, Victoria, Vancouver, Lethbridge, and a variety of sectors represented as well. So we have government, healthcare, operations, emergency services. Wow, well, we are a group from all across Canada and all across the professional sectors. So please continue to pop in where you're joining us from. I'm sure Kathy is reading through these excitedly right now. In a few seconds, I'm going to dive deeper into these too. So please continue to share more about yourself. So next on our list is sharing a little bit about Royal Roads University. So here we have a short pictorial description of what our campus looks like. So you'll see that we have Hatley Castle, which is probably the most iconic building on our campus. Its claim to fame are films such as the X-Men franchise, Deadpool, a Disney series called The Descendants. But beyond that, in this photo, you can see all of our academic and student services buildings as well. You'll notice that we have some beautiful greenery, a lot of water space, and a lot of learning happening here as well. So at Royal Roads, we ensure small class sizes and a conversational way of teaching. Here we believe that when your professors are your peers, classrooms become think tanks. Learning becomes a way of life. We're not about one-sided lectures or note-taking, but engaging conversations and open dialogue. Here you'll rarely find one right answer to anything. We're about exploring theories and sharing perspectives together. And a big part of that is because our learning is based on life, based on your life. So here, your education doesn't just shape your experiences, but your experiences are shaping your education. Being a university for working professionals means that students can bring real-world challenges and opportunities that are happening in their workplace into our classroom as conversation topics for their peers. You'll notice that at Rural Roads, there's no division between theory and practice. We're doing real world problem solving in real time. And a big part of that is our faculty are what we call scholar practitioners. So folks who are not only academic experts in their field, but who are right now out in the world putting into practice what they're teaching in our classrooms. Speaking of our classrooms, we touched a little bit upon your cohort as well, but it's important that I talk about them a little bit more. Because here at RU, you're not just learning from leaders, but you're learning alongside them as well. In a few slides, we'll talk about our flexible admissions model, but we're really proud of that because our flexible admissions model really allows us to purposefully create cohorts where we bring together students with unique backgrounds, perspectives, or experiences that will complement and challenge your own. I should mention that a cohort is a carefully crafted group of individuals, your learning community that you move through your program with together from start to finish. And those networks truly last long after that finish marker, that convocation date. Alumni are always so excited to share that their WhatsApp chats, their Facebook groups, their LinkedIn conversations, they continue to grow past graduation. And these wonderful supportive academic networks blossom into professional networks, opportunities for networking, skill building. A lot of alumni will share with their cohort when they see a job opportunity in their area, because over these 2 years, you become quite bonded and really, really put together not only professionally, academically, but personally as well as a group, which is really cool. At Rural Roads, we pioneered what was called the blended learning model. So this is where we combine online learning with short on-campus residencies to provide an opportunity for working professionals to be able to connect with graduate level education while working and while having that connected on-campus experience as well. At Rural Roads, we believe our education should be powerful enough to transcend your location, and every student should have access to life-changing education, no matter where you are in your life or in the world. So with that, let's talk about the program. So I will pass the microphone over to you, Kathy, to tell us more about why executive leadership.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Selena. And just so wonderful to have everybody here in the room. And so I'm going to, like Selena has given you a bit in terms of our university, but I'm actually going to start with the bigger picture in terms of, as she said, why executive leadership. So Selena, do you mind just flipping the slide, please? So I just want to acknowledge that across the globe, there's really been a declining trust in leadership. In 2017, the Edelman Trust Barometer identified a loss of trust in leaders across all sectors: business, NGOs, media, and government. And in 2019, Edelman reported that a majority of people in most countries around the world do not trust their institutions to do the right thing. And then in 2020, the shift focused to a real desire for organizational leaders who have both the ethics and competence to do the work. And now in 2021, quite the changes we've been in, that have been really put to the test by the pandemic, that right now there's a real declaration of information bankruptcy, which means people don't really trust what's being said. So moving that forward, we can also look at that leadership is at an all-time low in terms of the trustworthiness of it. That's the bad news. But the good news is, despite a lack of faith in the system, there is one relationship that has been found it to be strong, and that was identified by Edelman, which is my employer. So trust has become local, and this is part of a response to fake news, or it could be more in part because of the belief that we have agency in relationships with our employee. But really, employees are turning to organizations to make a difference. In fact, they're expecting it. And so 71% of employees agree that organizational leaders must lead on societal issues and employee needs. And so for organizational leaders, this is really a call to action. Next slide, please. And so when the slide comes up, what I'm going to talk about is that trusted leaders that are trusted employers lead on change. And how they do that is through values, purpose, operations, visioning the future, and impacting society. Because we really are in challenging times. And the whole world is getting up in arms about the lack of values. You know, we've seen this over the last couple of years, some of the examples being, you know, the truth and reconciliation, need for it, Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, climate change. And people really are starting to talk about values, what's important to us, and transformation. And so the values of organizations need to be modeled by leaders whose personal values align with them. Next slide, please. And so in today's complex, dynamic environment, especially now with COVID, leadership is changing and has been changed. And truly, we really are in a serious leadership crisis. We need organizational leaders who can be trusted in times of crisis. Now, although leadership can and needs to happen at all levels of an organization, executive leaders have the positional authority to impact organizational transformation, and they're responsible for setting organizational strategy, attending to vision, mission, values, and policies. And they also set the tone and direction for culture. So really, values and culture is often the game changer. And organizational leaders today need new mindsets and skill sets to become effective, trustworthy leaders. And so in this way, then they can meet the needs as Edelman identified, with competence and ethics, and addressing some of that informational bankruptcy with transparent and authentic communications. But it doesn't stop here. We've got some trends that have been identified. So if you can shift that, Selena. Deloitte, in their 2021 Global Human Capitals Trends Report, identified 5 trends to watch. And all of these trends are really human-centered organizational needs, which executive leadership will need to address. So that's a little taste of why executive leadership. And so at this point, I'm going to, drill down a bit more to our program overview and what that means, because it's about stepping up to address these human-centered needs. And so we have our MA leadership with our executive leadership specialization that is really specifically designed for mid to level senior leaders. And so talking about the program purpose, and we'll shift that slide, it's really about how to develop advanced leadership knowledge and skills for experienced leaders with a focus on sustaining organizational change through attention to values and cultures, both within the organization and beyond. And really, in these times of compelling challenges on all fronts, social, economic, political, environmental, we really need skillful, collaborative, and engaged leadership. And we need those mid-level to senior level leaders who have the role, responsibility, and authority to lead the way and focus on the organization as a whole. And so some of our program outcomes then would be, and this is where you can shift, thanks, Selena. At the core is really to develop the character and capabilities of mid-level to senior leaders in order to really enable effective, high-performing cultures. And so again, in an age of accelerating and unpredictable change, that VUCA, it's not possible to sustain adaptive change without changing organizational cultures. And so often these leaders rise to positions, organizational leaders, and are expected to know how to do this. But how do you do this without learning? And especially since it's new and emergent, because leadership really is applied. And so this is a real immersive program for leaders who want to promote change, transform, lead with success in their organizations, and have that bigger picture overview. So moving on then to our program structure, the first blended segment includes VBL D510 and 512, And these 2 courses are 3 credits each, and they're taken concurrently. So it's blended together, and it includes a 6-day residency. The second segment consists of a third 3 credit course online with a field project and a 5-day virtual conference. So the graduate certificate of leadership makes up these 3 courses, and it is concurrently run with our MA in leadership, the executive leadership specialization, and serves as its first residency term. So again, you may be wondering, why values-based leaders? So again, because values-based leaders enable leaders to walk the talk on explicitly identified values. They become authentic leaders who are trusted leaders. And in our current workplace environments, there's a real call for that trust and authenticity, inclusivity and diversity, concern for well-being, and a whole host of other values. So after completing the first term, you'll have a choice of electives, and then you get to head into a second term with Lead 625, Lead 626, and Lead 627, which really is around focusing on how you then take your practice and theory and really move it into an organizational, your workplace setting. So you finish with leading change in practice through Lead 640, which is an engaged leadership project. And this project is really your opportunity to test run your capabilities and build your experience with expert mentorship and coaching within your organization through our programming and our faculty. So another way to look at this, and feel free, thank you, is again, Residency 1, 12-week blended course, 6-day learning intensive. Traditionally, it's been on campus, but if not, we'll do it online, which we did this year due to the pandemic, but we are planning to be back on campus in May 2022. There's a distance 1, which are the electives, and what that looks like is to be determined by you and your needs. But again, typically it's 3 credit courses that run for 12 weeks. And then you have Residency 2, which is a 12-week blended course with a 6-day learning intensive as well on campus, as well as then you finish up and wrap it all up with a engaged leadership project, which is runs about 28 weeks. So if you can just flip the next slide, please, Selena. So you can see this project is your opportunity to, again, test run your capabilities and build your experience within your own organization. So at this point, you may be wondering what might be the difference, because we offer a variety of program within our MA leadership. So we talk about this as a specialization. And as I said, our executive leadership specialization caters to multi-sectorial, mid to senior level organizational change makers looking for that deeper dive into values-driven organization. And these leaders come into this program, will have at least 3 years as a designated organizational leader. Now, the graduate certificate in values-based leadership, which runs concurrently, is for those looking to explore or engage how to leverage values, again, to lead culture change and sustain successful innovation. But you may already have a degree and want to develop these practical skills and practical wisdom. So that's why sometimes people will continue, even if they have a degree, to come back and do the graduate certificate in values-based leadership. And so you'll see in our standard MA in leadership program, there's a range of leadership experience. As I said, leadership happens at all levels and needs to happen at all different levels, wherever anyone is. We all need to step up. So our standard MA in leadership program invites a range of leadership experience. It's for established and emerging leaders. It's also multi-sectorial, as is our executive leadership. And then if we look at our MA in leadership with the health specialization, it too is for established and emerging leaders, but its focus is really on the healthcare sector. So you might be wondering, well, how do you choose? Like if potentially you fit all that, possibly somebody could. They could be, a senior leader in healthcare. that it's like, how do I choose? Well, all of these programs are valuable. They depend on who you are and what you want out of it. And each program has that different foci and admission criteria. So it's really worth checking out your options further. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back to you, Selena, just to speak more in terms of how to apply.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kathy. And you've queued up for us to head into the next piece, which is admissions into the executive leadership specialization. We just have a few slides here, so this is a great time. If any questions were coming up for you, to pop them in the chat box. We'll chat together just for a few more minutes, and then we'll head to the chat box to answer any questions that might have come up for you. So with that, let's dive in. Our Master of Arts in Leadership with the Executive Leadership Specialization has the following standard admissions criteria. So as Kathy mentioned, an undergraduate degree and a minimum of 5 years of leadership experience, including at least 3 years as a designated organizational leader with responsibilities to lead others in delivering a common product or outcome with explicit values. And then on this slide, you can see some examples of roles that might fit this criteria. So for example, a CEO, VP, Deputy Minister, Assistant Deputy Minister, CFO, Director General, or other designated titles such as Director, Manager, or Supervisor as well. Are flexible admissions. So flexible admissions is for those folks who may not have a traditional academic background, but who have been working in the field for a significant amount of time and have gained their learning in that world. So for flexible admissions, applicants without an undergraduate degree will have at least 10 years of professional experience, with at least 7 years in an organization, as well as 5 years of leadership experience, with at least 3 years of positional leadership or designated leadership experience. We'll note that those who are assessed under flexible admissions, or those who meet the degree requirement, but perhaps not the GPA requirement, will be required to take our academic writing and critical thinking course. This course is well loved on our campus, and many programs have this as a requirement for their learners, as it really helps to ensure that you're heading into the program with the foundation you need to be successful. So how exactly do you write an academic paper? What is APA? All these questions that you really don't want to have to think about when you're doing your first assignment. We're going to make sure you're equipped with those skills before you start the program, so your learning and your attention can be paid to exactly that. What's going on in the program for you at that moment? Because this course is so well loved on our campus, we generally have intakes every month, if not a few times a month. So feel free to connect with us if you have any questions about the academic writing and critical thinking course. In this course, our students are expected to finish this course before the start of your program to ensure you're ready to go and obtain a minimum of a B+. So the application process itself, well, it begins with an online application. And our online application fee has recently changed. So I believe it's $128 and some odd cents. So we'll make sure to provide the correct number in our chat box. But as with most things, you start with an online application. Once your online application is in, we then start looking towards some supporting documents. So supporting documents being things such as official transcripts from any past post-secondary educational or institutes you studied at, a personal statement, writing sample, detailed resume, and 2 letters of reference. And if you're joining us from outside of Canada, sometimes a credit evaluation report or an English language proficiency score would be required as well. Our website is a wonderful resource for diving into what exactly are these supporting documents, and some more practical questions about how can we get them to your offices. So for example, official transcripts. Generally, they do need to be sent from your previous institution to Royal Roads sealed, But given these complex times, some institutions have started sending those digitally to one another. Your personal statement, the website has some really helpful guiding questions about what should you be exploring? What should you be answering? What are we hoping to learn about you? Detailed resume, our website has some handy tips and tricks of how to structure this resume to make sure that all of your accomplishments shine bright, and then some helpful information around your 2 letters of reference. So who should your referees be and how can they submit their letters to our offices? All that is noted on our website, or you can always connect with us at learn.more@royalroads.ca, as we're always helpful and we're always ready to be helpful and are eager to help you through moving through the application process. So upcoming intakes. Our executive leadership specialization begins April 19th, 2022, putting its application deadline at January 18th, 2022. So that means if you're interested in beginning this program with the executive leadership specialization, please have your online application in before January 18th. We've also noted some of our other leadership offerings as well. So for example, the multi-sectoral offering for established or emerging leaders, that will begin June 6th, 2022. And then our health specialization would begin September 19th, 2022. So again, if you have any questions about those dates or what we need from you when, connect with us. And speaking of connecting with us, we had a lot of questions around financial aid. So we wanted to make sure we provided some information around that today as well. So here at Royal Roads, we are so thankful for our wonderful financial aid and awards specialists on our campus who have their fingertips on a variety of different funding opportunities available through Royal Roads, but outside Royal Roads as well. And they can answer a lot of questions for you around things like loans, awards, research scholarships, or other types of funding. Given that Royal Roads does operate most of our graduate programs in this blended format, a lot of our students or prospective students don't actually connect with this office, which is so unfortunate as there's so many opportunities to help support funding your continued education. So please, if you're interested, connect with our offices on our website, or we've also noted their direct phone lines here as well. And in case you want to talk to a few more people, here are some more phone numbers and emails as well. So as I mentioned, our learn.more@royalroads.ca, we have a wonderful group of enrollment services experts to help answer any questions you might have about this program or any others on our campus, and to support questions you might have about the application process as well. You may have noticed Lisa Murray in our chat box, popping in wonderful links and helpful hints. So big thank you to Lisa for being here. And you can find her and her team at thatlearn.more@royalroads.ca. And if you're joining us from outside of Canada, Lisa's counterparts in our international admissions and registration department would be more than happy to help at learn.more.international@royalroads.ca. And of course, our School of Leadership Studies themselves, always eager to chat, always eager to help. So if you have any questions that you'd like to chat with Kathy about, feel free to connect at leadership.admin@royalroads.ca. And with that, we have come to the end of the formal presentation. So what I'll do is I'll bring down the slide deck and open up our chat box so we can start talking about some questions together. Before I go, I'll mention that the School of Leadership Studies actually has a wonderful blog. So if you're interested in learning about some topics that are explored in the different programs, right now they have a feature where they're showcasing different completion projects. So thesis, capstone, leadership projects that students have done and the impact of their work. So it's a great way to kind of check out what the School of Leadership is all about, what their students are getting up to as well. So with that, let me click a few things so we can all see each other and talk a little bit. So opening up our chat box. scrolling through all of the wonderful, wonderful introductions we have here, seeing all of Lisa's helpful links. So things such as our course descriptions, our upcoming schedules, notes on our admission requirements, a link to the academic writing and critical thinking course, and then a question from Kevin. So my degree and master's degree are from the 90s. Would I be considered under normal admission program or the flexible admission program? That is a great question. Kathy, did you want to take a swing at answering that one?
It would depend. I mean, I think Lisa had put sort of the application requires, and I think that would take a deeper conversation with admissions just to see what what the degree is in terms of those pieces. So, really, you're right in terms of the age of the degree. I see, Kevin, you've written, or no, Lisa's written. Kevin, the age of the degree isn't as important as the relevance of it and whether or not it's a typical 4-year undergraduate degree, to know, because that's where, if it's 3, sometimes it's flexible, and that's why it's to check. And then Lisa says, to note, you won't need to decide which route you're reviewed under. This is done by admissions once they have all the supporting documents in. And truly, what's really critical as well is your experience, your leadership experience, and where you're moving and wanting to move with your leadership experience. So definitely urge you to apply, or at least have call, or have a call with me, or email, and we can talk it through a little bit more.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kathy, and thanks, Lisa. I absolutely should have mentioned flexible admissions and standard admissions. Yes, you are not checking a box on your application. Both application modes, you complete the same supporting documents, the same online application, and it's us at Rural Roads that we go, okay, maybe not standard admissions, but let's dive into this file a bit deeper and get to know you a little bit better and see how flexible admissions applies to you. So all of our flexible admissions applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. So as Kathy mentioned, Lisa and her team are the wonderful folks who can help support you through what flexible admissions might mean for you. We have another great question here from Elsie. Is the intake process competitive? Is there a limited number of students per cohort? Or if you meet all of the program requirements and can pay the fees, are you accepted? That is a great question, Elsie. And another thing I should have shared, here at Rural Roads, we accept applications on an ongoing basis. So that means the application deadline that I noted in January, we're not actually waiting until that deadline hits and then looking at all the applications. What we do is we assess your file as it's complete and submitted to our offices. So once your online application is in, your supporting documents are in, we assess your file and we let you know about your seat in the program. Kathy, maybe you can talk a little bit about the number of students typically within a cohort.
Lovely. Yes, thank you. Yes, we do have a limit of how many people come into our cohort. We usually have about 45. And actually, I'm thinking there's actually some other people that we accept in terms of outside. So I would, let me run back. Because within our program as a whole, we have the MA leadership, but we also have a grad cert, and then potentially we offer, other students that may come through, a Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies. So we can have up to 54 students in a cohort. And so if it fills up, yes, then there's a wait list that comes. And typically our programs do fill up. This executive leadership program, newly launched last year, it was originally our standard MA leadership program. And so we made some adjustments utilizing some of the standard MA leadership program, but also evolving it with our VBL grad cert, which has been in existence for 8 years. And so we tweaked it just because of what we were finding was the need. And so in terms of that, we had for our first run, we had almost 40 students come. So if you're looking at the Excel, we're hoping to, have robust, again, cohort model. And, we team teach with faculty. And I think it's really important, as Selena talked about, that faculty are practitioner scholars. So you're really going to find organizational leaders who are doing this work. A shout out to Brad in Parksville, and where I was the executive director of our Chamber of Commerce there. I'm now back in Victoria, and a shout out to other people from Victoria. And I was raised in Vancouver. I lived in Poco, lived in Toronto. But anyways, good to have you all here. I'm also multi-sectorial and Canadian across the board, but I've also been to worked in England and Greece. But anyways, I detract. We're looking at inviting a whole range of people in. And so, sorry, I derailed there, which is ultimately, yes, we have a limit number. It has a wait list. Apply early, and look forward to having a wide range of leaders come into the program.
Amazing. Thanks, Kathy. We actually have another question for you. What do MA leadership students typically find is the range of study effort per week for this program?
Yeah, wonderful question, John. Like at the end of the day, this program caters to working professionals. And so, we look at how many credit course and efforts of hours need to be, roughly, students look at around 20 hours a week. There's, of course, some ebb and flow, depending if you have an on-campus residency or intensive. That's different than if you were fully online. And sometimes in the beginning, it takes some time to get up to speed as you start to learn a new system and, be in the process with your cohort. And so, we really suggest, if you schedule time or schedule your whole week in terms of where are you going to find the time, that's where students have been really successful. And looking at the way that the courses are laid out, there's some engagement with others. So, ensure that, you have some weekend time to sort of connect back and move. So again, there's an ebb and flow. I hope that helps, John.
So we have tons of great questions in our chat box. The next one from Nicole. If someone is interested in the Masters of Leadership with the Executive Leadership Specialization, but takes the standard MA Leadership program first, is there an opportunity to add that Executive Leadership Specialization on at a later date?
No, it's a different program. So basically, for the first term of the MA Leadership program, that runs concurrently with a graduate certificate in leadership. Whereas in the executive leadership program, that runs concurrently with the values-based leadership program. And the focus is really on organizational leaders and cultural enhancement in terms of working with culture from that point of view. So we have parallel concepts, but different focus. And so as a result, it's not just about, oh, I can add a specialization. It has core components, but it's not something that you just kind of take one piece and mix and match with, as you would say with electives. We have 3 electives in the Excel program, whereas the MA Leadership program has 1 elective. So that's where, if it was simply an elective, you could choose something, but in this particular, you make a choice. It's a different path to follow. Great question, Nicole. Thank you. And I will continue to read. Then I see Brad has put, does the executive coaching program ladder into the program if done prior to the MA Leadership program? Yes, you can make an application to do that. So great question, Brad, in terms of, there's the executive coaching program. There's also corporate and social innovation certificate. So you can actually, because it's 9 credits, you could actually look at a certificate to ladder in to the Excel and apply for your elective period, which students have currently. So again, you can make that application if you've already taken it, but you can also take it potentially during your elective window, which you can look at and see what kind of certificates there are. Some of our students are taking change management certificate right now as well. That really needs a program head approval. And so just to make sure that what people choose really does fit the criteria and will meet your credit needs for the completion of your master's. And so if you're thinking of potentially doing a course pre, or whether it's a certificate pre, be sure to check in with me, because there is a process with that. But the quick and simple answer is yes. There you go. And then I'll continue to read. So hello, good afternoon, Garfield. So you said, I've recently completed a PhD abroad and have some leadership experience. What docs do I need to provide? I also granted refugee protection in Canada recently. Will I pay the international fees or local fees? So at this point, I think I will turn that over to my colleagues in admissions. So I don't know if Lisa is saying anything, or Selena, if you would like to say more.
Absolutely. So I'm seeing a comment from Lisa here sharing that Garfield, you would be regarded as a domestic student if you have refugee status. But again, our offices are always here to help answer any finer details as well. So given that Lisa's noted, you would be regarded as a domestic student, you can contact Lisa and her team at learn.more@royalroads.ca, and they'll be able to help you out. Thanks for the great question. Scrolling through, we have another question here from Franklin. Do you typically have military members apply for the executive leadership program? If so, which positions have they held to meet the application requirements? The Canadian Armed Forces doesn't have the same positions as the same positions mentioned, such as CEO or manager.
Lovely, Franklin. And one of the challenge with is giving sort of examples is that sometimes then it feels like, who have we excluded? And without a doubt, because we're multi-sectoral, we definitely have military members who've come forward. We've had members from different protective services, from the RCMP, from police services, from paramedicine, a variety of different military and protective service members. I'm not up on all the military ranks, but know that yes, there is a variety of ranks that have come through that I've worked with, and the ranks. The reason why I don't know them, because I think of them as people and people who work in the military as opposed to ranks. So it would just be a matter of, yes, where are you in terms of your executive leadership? And that's why we talk about designated leadership positions overall. And then again, people say, well, can you give us examples? And so at that point, we drilled down a bit to public service members, because one of the things that we recognized with values-based leadership really is having a service orientation, which is really about looking at the greater service, the greater public service. Hopefully all of our organizations and our services have that as well, but that's where some of that drill down came from. So yes, know that the military members are welcome in terms of those ranks, and I could have more of a discussion with you if you want to follow up more about that. At this point, sorry, I can't give you a rank off the top of my head.
Thanks, Kathy. And as Kathy's mentioned, so anyone who wants to talk with Kathy, please connect. I can absolutely attest to Kathy being so helpful and always open to conversation. I'll also note that in our chat box, folks are looking for the contact information for our enrollment services team. So we popped that in the chat box. But what I can do in our follow-up email is also include the link to book an appointment. So you're welcome to chat over phone or email. But if you'd like to have a virtual session like this with one of our enrollment advisors, absolutely. So I'll make sure to include that booking link so you can find a time that works best for you if you'd like to connect that way. So we had a great question here from John. Is there a cohort limit to the graduate certificate in values-based leadership? Given the MA Leadership Executive Program has a cohort limit of 45, if one graduated from the graduate certificate, would one need to apply and wait a bit of time to continue to complete the MA program?
Wonderful question, John. And please don't get caught up in the numbers piece. So let me explain to you the core of that. Is if you get accepted, if you apply for the graduate certificate program in values-based leadership, and some people do, they say, you know what, I'm kind of not sure if I want to continue with a master's, but I'm liking this, but I think I'd like to do the first piece of it. So there's many different ways to sort of pass to go. So let's say you said, okay, I'm applying for this. Then you have the ability to, if in the middle of it you say, oh, I want to continue on, and you're in it, yes, you can continue on, because our numbers do take into account all those pieces. That's why I was sort of saying, well, 45, and then I said, oh, wait, 54, because of these pieces. But if you're in the program, you will have the ability to decide to shift into the MA Executive Leadership Program if you decide that, you know what, actually, I do want to continue on and get my master's. So there's one piece at the time. Now, the other thing you might say is, oh, I've taken this values-based leadership program, but I want to carry on, but I think I need to take a few months break. I think I need to take a break from it. At that point, then you would look at reapplying to another MA executive leadership cohort. At that point, then you would go through the application process and then have to wait. So that's why there's kind of two prongs, that sort of piece. But ultimately, when we come together in our cohort, we acknowledge that there's a variety of different students and tracks people are going on, but ultimately we're all here in terms of executive education. Does that help, John? Oh, excellent. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you.
So it looks like that. Oh, please, Kathy.
Sorry, I was reading what you wrote, Selena, which was, what we find is that there is often people who start with the graduate certificate, carry on and continue with their cohort, just because, as Selena said, there's a magic to our cohort model. There's a magic in terms of working with people and developing that network, and really the commitment to learning both theory and practice, and to really evolve as a leader. We're incredibly privileged to do this kind of work together, and so it's quite energizing. And as we know, a lot of times leaders are on their own, especially in positional places. So to really be able to cultivate an understanding and a growth and be with others who are really committed to making change in the world becomes very powerful. Selena, sorry, off to you.
No, Kathy, that is perfect. With all of that, we've actually come to the end of the questions in our chat box. So wait a few more seconds in case anyone's typing and any other questions have come up for you. We see some thank yous coming in. Thank you to you, Kevin. So with that, I think we've come to a close on our conversation today. But again, in our follow-up communications, I'll be sure to include the link to this recording, which of course will include the slides for anyone who is interested at a closer look. We'll include the link to book an appointment with Lisa and her team, but also the emails to connect with Lisa, her team, Kathy, myself as well. So while we are done chatting for today, hopefully we'll chat again very, very soon. So with that, Lisa has added one tiny tidbit in our chat box. Thanks, Lisa. So Lisa shares that we do encourage our applicants to chat with alumni. So if you're excited about the idea of talking to someone who is in the program or has moved through the program and now is applying their earned credential, please connect with Lisa directly. And that'll be another email I share. Lisa Murray at royalrose.ca if you want to chat with someone who has already walked the walk and learn a bit about where it took them. So with that, we will wish you a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where and the world you're joining us from and when you're watching this recording. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.